Hello everyone and welcome, and today I've embarked on my largest project to date, a massive museum. And if you do like this build, please like and subscribe. I put a lot of time into this one and it would be greatly appreciated. But back to the video. In its entirety, this build took me over 15 hours, both interior and exterior. So in short, it was a massive undertaking, but it was worth it. I started out with the basic plan laid out in wool. I knew that I wanted a large dome to house my favorite exhibitions, so that's what I did, leaving plenty of space for the other exhibitions that would be housed inside the museum walls. Because of the large size of this build, I ended up using WorldEdit quite a bit to make the process go a little bit quicker and smoother, but at large this building is hand done, with just a little bit of WorldEdit enhancement to make my life a lot easier. Just like my favorite museum, the Smithsonian Natural History Museum in Washington, D.C., I decided to make this in the neoclassical style with this Greek facade and pillars, which I think ended up looking super cool and would definitely fit in with some other history museums that I've been to. I started the massive dome in the back of the building with wool, using two alternating colors to make the entire dome before using WorldEdit to change the entire thing to glass. It was much easier for me to see exactly where to place the wool when I had the different colors and helped prevent any mistakes from the reference sheet into the game itself. It definitely worked because the dome turned out perfectly. After a while, I realized that there was just too much white. Way too much. It felt like I was just staring at a massive block of quartz. So I went ahead and did what I should have done in the first place and added a gradient. From diorite to calcite to white concrete powder to quartz. The mix of blocks helped tremendously to add a visual element of variety to the build without taking away from the overall vibe. It was a needed change that brought the exterior to the next level. Eventually, I decided that there was still way too much white and not enough detail, but I couldn't very well add any more windows. Too many windows would mean that exhibits would need to be placed at odd spots, and in real life it meant the antiquities would be prone to sun damage. So I decided to mark off a few spots where I would add some murals, and this would add some much needed color to both the interior and exterior of the building. The first two murals, of course, were some dinosaurs. A pterodactyl on one side, which actually technically is not a dinosaur, but it made for a nice mural, so we'll let it slide. And on the other, a cute stegosaurus. After this, it was time to focus our attention on the interior, because for all intents and purposes, the exterior was complete, except for a few minor details that I would come back to later. And after adding a few lights and the ticket stand, it was finally time to move on to building the exhibits.
All right.
Once again, I used two colors of wool to build this T-Rex skeleton. I found that using the wool made it infinitely easier for me to see exactly what was going on with the fossil. This massive T-Rex fossil is just perfect for this area, the centerpiece of the museum and what can be considered the focal point of the building. I moved on to some other exhibits in the fossil section, which included a Triceratops and Stegosaurus skull and a dinosaur footprint that caused me much more trouble than I'd like to admit. I added a few more exhibits and some more spaces to put murals, but but decided to take a small break from the dinosaurs and move to my second favorite exhibition, the Egyptian exhibit. This exhibit, in my mind, is not a permanent fixture at this museum, but simply on loan from an Egyptian history museum in Egypt. This exhibit holds a couple of my favorite things in the entire museum, including the mummy made out of mangrove roots and several statues that utilize custom heads via command blocks to accomplish. After finishing that wing of the museum, I came back to the dinosaur exhibit and redid a few of the fossils, using custom heads like I did in the Egyptian wing. I also added to the murals, creating one with an Apatosaurus and one with an Ankylosaur, although I'm not quite sure you would be able to tell exactly what the latter is without me saying. The third exhibit is dedicated purely to those ancient animals of the water, like the plesiosaur, mosasaurus, trilobites, and more. This exhibit relies almost entirely on using custom heads that housed fossils of such animals, but I also built something akin to a pletosaur to hang from the ceiling, and this ancient sea turtle called an archelion. The exhibit also houses some coral as a modern effort to preserve our oceans. The fourth exhibition houses precious gems and geodes for everyone to admire, and it is heavily inspired by the geology wing in my local museum. With a combination of the rocks already in the game and custom heads, I was able to add dozens of precious gems for my patrons to admire. I also changed the upstairs windows to be the new tinted glass so that the precious gems would be darker and illuminated only by the light in their cases. And the final exhibit I decided to dedicate to ancient Greece, consisting mostly of statues, but also this large line of items that I thought could be representative of the ancient culture the room represents. Just like in the Egyptian exhibit, I added a small diorama of what an ancient temple would have looked like. And inside this room, I have 4 identical statues, which is an abstract, I admit, reference to the 6 sister Cariad statues in a world where they're all united once again. With all the exhibits complete, I decided to add a few more necessary details, including benches for tired patrons to take a rest, and a gift shop to give the museum a little extra revenue, and finally, the banners showing off what the museum has to offer. This build represents a lot for me. I wanted something that represented me as a person, because this build is actually being released on the day that I officially move out and start my adult life in college, and I couldn't be more excited. I'm studying to eventually work in a museum, perhaps one just like this, and this building is more than just a big project to show off. It represents me and my passion for history and the future that it holds for me. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed it. I poured my soul into this museum, and if you'd like to see the full tour, that video will be out on the 26th, or right now, depending on when you're watching. Please remember to like the video and subscribe to see more things just like this. Goodbye! Live it up, sweet emotion. Every
time, every night, you and